Welcome to Slow News Day. My name is Steve Poikinen.
And I'm Sarah Hall.
We are here to promote artists, activists, organizers, and general agitators who are doing something to fight back against this dystopian hellscape we call late-stage capitalism here in the heart of the empire. Joining us tonight is a writer, the host of the Roadways podcast, and a general divine light leading others to truth. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Lindsey Sharmyn. How you doing tonight?
Thank you so much. That was a very nice intro.
So how's it going? Just so you guys know, I have been on Lindsey's show twice now. Roadways delves into things conspiratorial, into things spiritual, esoteric. It is a great show, and it's been a lot of fun to do it. And I highly recommend that you guys go over and give it a listen. How's the show going for you, Lindsey?
It's so good. It's so fun. I think it's one of the most fun things I've ever done in my life, honestly, and I feel really lucky to do it and to have such a cool community and Eyes Open Facebook group that is so supportive of it and everybody wants to participate. I love that it's a panel show, so like there's always multiple people on and we get to see so many different perspectives, and I've gotten really good, like that I have to do to survive, which is teaching, and so I have some new nephews in the world, which is really lovely.
Congratulations!
Thank you so much. I have a 3-month-old one named Justice, and then maybe 2.5-week-old Eli. So both my brother and my sister are suddenly late in life after our whole family was kind of convinced that none of us would ever have babies. And so it's really sudden and awesome and cool. So life is really busy, and I actually haven't done the show for, I think, 2 weekends, which is weird because I think I've been doing one a week or more for months.
Right.
And that time just ripped by super fast, those 2 weeks too, huh?
Yeah. Yes, totally.
Yeah, I'm feeling all those things too as we open the show and go through all those things and begin to exchange and do all those things. I find it really exciting as well.
Well, you guys, I feel like this time is like this for everyone right now, and I don't know what it is in the air or in astrology or whatever, but everyone just, I feel like, is on fast forward right now, and you guys are just starting your show right in the middle of that fast forward time, so I can't imagine that. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's been one of those things where I'm adding extra wicks to my candle so that I can burn multiple ends instead of the traditional two.
Yeah.
I occasionally see my family now. I hear they're doing well.
We'll hope so.
I got to take a break from work with my family to come do this, so I'm happy to be here too.
Isn't it funny? Like we're doing all these really great things like for fun, and I wish we could get paid for them. Maybe you guys will. I don't know.
Trading ideas, wouldn't that be? That's a beautiful dream. I'd say keep that alive.
Yeah.
Save your bendovers for things you like.
If we can,
like good co-hosts together.
If we can monetize and trade in our personal information, or have our personal information monetized and traded, it stands to reason that we can flip that back on those motherfuckers and hopefully someday at least pay studio fees and maybe afford a fucking edible or two at the end of a show.
Dude, I feel like you're asking for them to give you a neural implant though, so I don't know.
They don't have to, it's all frequencies now. It's triangulated frequencies. Receivers are old.
I was just thinking on the way home, like, I wonder if we will even be able to really know, like, which thoughts and feelings are our own, because I don't know exactly what they're using or how often, but we know what they have. We know the capabilities, and
we all feel it. And we all feel it. We all know something's wrong. It's really tough to put your finger on it when they're triangulating and broadcasting. I don't want to go too far over the shark now, like in the beginning here. With my ass out up in the air. But I talked to a person inside NASA who's worked for military, public, and private sectors. He's very happy to be in the public sector now. And his career has spanned many decades. So when I say stuff like frequencies, triangulating, that's where I'm getting my information from.
Directly from the work.
I think it's beneficial for people like us, and at least who view the world in the way that we tend to, in that we know that we're being lied to constantly by the people in power, to have people that come from those kind of deep state backgrounds that have moved past it and are out of that life and in the public sector to occasionally let us know that no, in fact, we're not crazy, but we can't say that out loud in their company.
Yeah.
And the stuff that he says matter-of-factly is bone-chilling to me.
Yeah.
No, like the mosquito drones?
The mosquito drones, yeah. I said, what about these ones? He said, oh, those are in this part of Mexico. I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. He said, oh, they only make those ones there.
Oh my God.
Certain kinds. It's not just like your everyday mosquito that you see. These are like designed to blend into their environment impeccably.
And you've got to know then that they've also got shit you're never going to see.
Oh yeah. Well, and by the time there's an announcement that technology is viable, it's already been viable for at least a decade, and it's been tested on us. We're all patient zero for all of this bullshit. Which sort of segues into one of the things that we were talking about, is weather, is geoengineering, weather manipulation, and I hope a lot of people know that very recently the Air Force announced that yes, as a matter of fact, we do manipulate the weather, and no, don't worry, it's benevolent. We're doing it for the farmers. But then you turn around and see flooding in Arizona, or Category 4 hurricanes in Florida in the middle of October. All of these weather events that are either attributed to man-made climate change, ignored entirely in some segments of the media, or just outright attributed to, well, there's a long curve in the way that the earth has worked, and we just happen to be born in the time where it's going to suck again. And in light of the information that we all have access to, I don't see how you can't look at a concept like geoengineering without thinking this is being done to us. And damned if I can figure out why.
It's crazy, and it's crazy that people don't, like you just said, the Air Force came out and said that they are modifying the weather, and we have records of weather modification and from the military going back to, I want to say like 1910 or something, like early 1900s, documented. And if, like you were saying too, if what we hear about is 10 years ahead in their world, in the black ops world or whatever, black budget world, then what are they actually doing? So what they're admitting to us is that they're modifying the weather. They're probably going beyond the weather modification we can even grasp, honestly, right? But people still won't even entertain the idea.
And when did they begin to admit too
that they're modifying the weather, and they will not believe you? It's like, we have documented evidence. I'm not a crazy person. Like, this is things that they tell us they're doing, and people are still like, no, you're crazy. Like, how is that such? I get cognitive dissonance, but I don't get how you can, like,
when you see the jumbo jets landing with the stuff blasting out of them, and they can't like contain it at the airport as it's coming out hot, and they gotta rush it in hazmat. There's clearly something going on there.
I wonder if that's bad.
goes back to cognitive dissonance is a hell of a drug, as Steve is so fond of saying.
We need that as a t-shirt. Like, it's too true.
Yeah, it should be on a t-shirt.
Right?
Now I sell t-shirts.
Right? Thought I was going to bring people to the truth. Turns out I'm a t-shirt merchant.
Yeah.
We know a guy like that. I don't. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, it's not just that they're in denial that it's even happening. It's like, even if you can get someone to admit, like, yeah, they do some weather modification for crops or whatever you guys are saying, like farmers, but then we have all those fires, you know, in the summer all over the country, all over the continent, and nobody can modify the weather to make it rain there. You have all that smoke. It should be easy. I don't know.
That's an excellent point right there. We live where we are right now. There's a Lockheed Martin facility a couple of ridges away from us.
Be careful.
And, well...
I've already been visited by every branch of private law enforcement that, actually public branch of law enforcement that they use as their private security. Very interesting to watch how that works. Something about a trespassing on their land that people in my house may or may not have been involved in. The long and short of it is, though, that charge, that first one is a warning. Even though they come at you every way, sheriffs, rangers, in your home, in front of your children, down to the court, half a day off work for an interrogation, and you're let off with a warning, first offense. But they lead you through all this stuff where you think, oh my God, I'm going to lose my kids, and so it goes.
That seems like terrorism to me.
Yeah, absolutely. The United States is the world's largest state sponsor of terrorism globally, without a doubt.
I mean, literally.
That Lockheed facility is involved with making directed energy weapons.
Really?
They admit this freely on their website. And back to your comment about all of the wildfires, right before we got hit with this year's round of them, a friend of mine here who does tree work was doing a job for a guy who is a Lockheed engineer, and that guy said, well, I shouldn't tell you what we're doing, but here's what we're doing, and it was making a directed laser that can get through a US-made battleship.
Jesus.
Right?
Yeah.
So, knowing that, how is it not at the forefront of everyone's mind that there's a distinct possibility that these fires that we've been experiencing internationally have at least something to do with testing out these directed energy weapons? But you're right, you say that, you can read off from the CIA's website what they've done and who they did it to. And if you do that in the middle of a coffee shop, they look at you like you're fucking plastic pants, tinfoil hat, fucking cuckoo.
You're the crazy one.
Right, right.
Not them ignoring everything in reality around them that's screaming at them in the face. You're the crazy one for saying it out loud.
Yeah, no, you're always the bad guy if you're the one bringing a little bit of reality into the situation, regardless of how cartoonishly fucking evil it is.
Seriously. I lately more and more, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. Like, I just look around me and I'm like, how is everyone this fucking retarded? Sorry if you're not the story on your show. I'm sorry for it.
No, that's okay, man. Our last guest had a crib death joke, so we're good.
Yeah.
We've already crossed all the boundaries.
I didn't even have to be the one to do it.
Hey, you guys are picking the right guess, but people are crossing the boundaries for you. Now it's all wide open.
You know, I really honestly don't understand why there is a boundary at this point. Why tone policing has become so prevalent, especially in the worlds that we interact in online. It seems like you can barely say something bone-chillingly obvious, like there aren't two parties. There's one corporate party. And they're like, oh, you can do it.
Why do you love Donald Trump?
Yeah, Donald Trump is a wholly unique monster, and we were doing just fine until he showed up.
Yeah, everything was peachy, and he is.
But it just really, I feel like we all kind of are on the same page of feeling like it had to get that bad. I mean, we live in a climate where, we have an age of young voters coming into the polls, and they're super feverish and hot under the collar. They don't know what a let them eat cake moment is in history. They can't point to Louisiana on a map, but they're sick and tired of getting gunned down in the classroom, and so they're ready to make some moves.
And they're very entitled. And they have no sense of responsibility at all. Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're a teacher. You know better than most what the pulse of students is.
Were you in the classroom when the presidential alert went off?
Yes, actually. Well, I think I was technically at lunch, but
I was curious how that works in the classroom.
They all started. So people where I work, it's very rural, and a lot of my students really like Donald Trump, and their parents really like Donald Trump. They're like Republican or Libertarian or.
That's gnarly.
A handful of them are not that, and those ones were all desperately researching, like, why is Donald Trump trying to take over our phones, and like,
yeah.
And I was trying to talk to them about, like, I don't buy into the party, partisan politics, but I was trying to explain to them that that was actually a Obama era protocol, and it was just being tested now, and they just did not care. They only wanted to know what might support their idea that Donald Trump was evil and attacking us all, or planning something horrible for us, or whatever.
So, it's tied to the emergency alert system, right? And you're 100% correct in that it was an Obama era concept that they never got around to implementing because starting 7 illegal wars kind of took up a lot of their time.
God, way.
The really, the helping perpetuate a genocide in Yemen is exhausting. But you gotta think that, like, Obama's probably pissed that he's not getting the full credit for what we've been calling the Orange Alert.
Poor Obama.
And the George Bush has just got to be pissed as shit because every time someone says Obama phones, that was a George Bush pilot program. And nobody gives the little guy credit for it.
Poor little
They're not Bush phones.
I was supposed to take over the world, and I didn't get it done in 8 years.
Those fucking guys. I want to go back to geoengineering a little bit, if we could, because there's, you can see if you're stuck in an airport or getting your oil changed where there is mainstream media on a television, you can see them describe the event, tell you flat out the jet streams are slowing down. Because the jet streams are slowing down and getting wider, we don't have seasons anymore. But they never draw a line from that to either man-made climate change or weather manipulation.
Yeah, which is also man-made climate change.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just the kind that it's like the man-made climate change that most people are referring to is like we're supposed to feel guilty, like we are the pieces of shit that are killing the planet somehow, which I have finally rid myself of that feeling. Like I was raised in a very hippy-dippy sort of world, and I was trained to kind of hate myself if I didn't recycle enough, and if I didn't, if I probably should be driving an electric car by now, and all of these things, and I finally understood that what really got to me, sorry if this is too much of a tangent, but I was at the source water for, I want to say in the Missouri, I'm sorry if I'm wrong, but it comes out of Mount Shasta. And it's in the little town of Mount Shasta, and I was sitting there at the headwaters, at the source water, and I was like thinking about, I was just realizing like this has been coming out from that same spot at this same volume for hundreds or thousands, like we don't even know how many years, forever, and there's so many of these all over the planet, and nobody has ever taught us about this in the water cycle. Like I don't even know if water is a finite resource, because I just feel like it's really crazy.
I know that water that has toxic chemicals in it is a finite resource.
Yes, and I know that it's not good to dump toxic chemicals in. Like I'm not advocating water pollution. I feel like for some reason we're being made to believe that we are destroying the planet and that there's not a way to solve that problem if the world is being affected by mankind, that it's like irreversible. And I don't know why. I don't really know what the goal of that is, but I know it's really destructive and really controlling, and I think it's good for the economy.
Is
At the very least. Yeah, because people go out and buy new cars. I mean,
I suppose you're right.
Take stuff from like 1910 and still be driving it, and fix it up and replace a few parts or whatnot, if you're taking good care of stuff. But instead, you have to go buy this new electric car because your evil truck is killing the planet. You piece of shit.
That's a fair point.
And we have to develop all these new methods of recycling and pay for all that. And I don't know. I'm not saying I have like all the answers. I do think it's better to not be super consumeristic and not waste a bunch and just throw things away and all of that. And I don't think you should just be dumping garbage or pollutants everywhere. But I just think electric cars are really bad for the environment. Like really, really bad. And it's like, it's so ironic if people are going out to buy these and you're like, you just bought something that has 4 to 6, I think, giant batteries that are never, ever going to stop polluting. As far as we know, into like eternity. Like the sun will have to explode the planet for that to be put back into a different state of matter.
Yeah, it just makes me think of something else that sells a lot of batteries. A guaranteed battery sale is a natural disaster.
Yeah, it's a pitching, it's marketing.
Fear-based sales drive.
Yeah. There's. Oh fuck! How do I want to frame this? It seems like the shift is from one toxic or polluting vehicle to another, instead of addressing the fact that we're poisoning shit left and right constantly. But if the end result of climate change activism is I can go out to the ocean and catch something other than a Fukushima fish, like I'm kind of all right with that. Like I'm kind of all right with not taking in external poisons. I understand that fish eat and sleep in shit because it's the ocean, but
people here just be like, oh, have you noticed how much wildlife is in the sanctuary lately? Like in the last couple of years, I'm like, yeah, it's a crush away from something. And that's, and we had a white dolphin here on the equinox, by the way, which I thought was very nice. I had a very beautiful equinox, and the morning after there was a albino dolphin that was captured on film in the Bay Sanctuary, where people are just like, wow, look at all this wildlife! Just running for its life to one of the last places. No, I don't want to be that doom and gloom, dude.
Well, I always have to go back to like, okay, if fossil fuels or whatever are destroying the planet, sure, maybe they are. I'm not a scientist, and I really do believe there's geoengineering going on and things are being manipulated beyond that. But I also don't think that a bunch of shit into the atmosphere is a very good thing either. So I can go with that. But who's the largest consumer of fossil fuels on the planet?
the U.S. military.
the U.S. military. So why the fuck should I feel guilty about driving my goddamn car when they're fucking flying around the world in their goddamn jets? Every night I get fucking buzzed like 10 times. And I'm like, what can you possibly be practicing anymore? You're done. Chill out.
Agreed. Agreed. I think that you raise an interesting point there, because we are led to believe that you and I and Sarah are 100% responsible for the damage being done to the planet, and that gives cover to the military, and it gives cover for them to further geoengineering experiments.
Maybe that's exactly why they do it.
I think we solved it, ladies and gentlemen. I do. All right, show's over.
I'm trying to do technical things to save the wizard of the studio and ourselves time here. So forgive me if I seem a little distracted. Well, because I'm getting really interested in what you're saying or what Steve's saying, and forgetting to drag and to save our person who's aiding and abetting us in this some time, and also offer cha-ching, you know?
Yeah.
So but I'm here with you, and I fully believe in the message. I listened to you for the first time on Roadways when Steve did your show one of these last times, and just it's really inspiring to see people out there that are younger than me carrying the message of light, opening the cans, asking the questions, trying to illuminate the holes for others. And I am just so pleased that I got to meet you today, Lindsey, and I look forward to seeing you in the future and continuing.
Thank you so much. That's a really nice message to hear, because I feel like that was kind of my goal in becoming a teacher in some way, and then I realized that 99.9% of my students don't want to know anything about anything, and you can't make anyone think or do anything. So it's just this really pointless, frustrating endeavor in many ways, and there's been a lot of who I think I've touched and who have touched me and have made it worthwhile, but I just more and more I'm like, what is the point of this, you know?
Are you familiar with the story of like the starfish walking along the shore? There's a person, there's like a million starfish washed up on the shore, and they're all thirsty they're dying. And there's a person walking along the shore, there's a kid tossing them back in one by one. And some grizzled old comes over and is like, do you think you're going to make a difference? And the kid said, it made a difference to that one.
Yeah. Oh,
so
that's so true.
There's that too, man. Don't give up just because we are outnumbered. I gave up for a long time. I'm just coming back into the lake field. I was labeled insane, all of the things.
Welcome back.
I am so excited to be here and feel the vibration as it picks up, like globally, and people are tuning into the same frequency, and it isn't all about annihilation of our species. We have, you know, more in common. And what am I? There, I did it again.
Oh, you're fine.
Cha-ching, like I should have a bell every time I forget to do that.
No, because you need positive. You need positive reinforcement. You need a bell every time you do whatever it is you're trying to do.
So you kind of touched on something there that I think we could take into a kind of a cool direction. There are, it seems like, more and more people that are willing to at least hear folks like us out and kind of entertain the notion that that things aren't the way that they're presented. The pushback on that by the people in power has been tremendous. It's been the largest global tantrum I think that we are going to witness in our lifetimes. There's been a couple of more moments throughout history where the tantrum occurred from the people in power and it did not work out for them. Do you think that the community of fellow travelers that we live in, do you see a shot for us
It's complicated. I agree with you, and I like the way you described it, this tantrum that's being thrown by the elite, and it's nice to see them scramble for once. It's felt like their kind of control has been just like iron, no, like impenetrable. And here they are kind of scrambling for control, and they're losing power, and it is really, really cool to see people wake up more. I always wonder if I'm just imagining that or if it's really happening, because it seems like too good to be true. But this is where I get like super woo-woo, because I don't know that it matters anymore to me, like who, if there is a government or who controls it or whatnot. And we have a person in the group, Jeff, shout out to Jeff, and Jeff today said something to the extent of like, you can't even see this enemy that we face. Like it's an internal
the quote from Predator
of mankind, And I feel like that is really true. And I think there is totally a shot and totally a chance. And I think it exists in like literally every moment. And I think all it really truly takes is for people to be brave enough to admit to themselves that nothing about this paradigm is functional or productive or positive in any way, and that we are something different and that we want something different. I just feel like people are too scared to even look at reality. They have to really fucking get over that and do it. And I think that's the chance that we have.
Do you think poverty or relative poverty has anything to do with that? Because I don't really know that many rich woke motherfuckers.
Yeah. Well, that's a really good point, because a lot of people point out that like most of the people who kind of wake up have been through some shit, like they've known trouble. And so if you live in poverty, you're probably going to have to face a lot of shit. And maybe that gives you, what, isn't the word for crisis actually opportunity?
That's what they say.
Yes, that's what they say. So maybe it's true. Maybe every, truly hard thing you face is one more chance for you to recognize who you are or be something different. But I mean, I don't wish any of that shit upon anyone at the same time. So
right. You wouldn't want to force someone to go through the kind of shit that it's at least taken me personally to come view the world the way that I do. Although I started out viewing the world the way that I do in sort of relative comfort. I mean, we weren't like dirt poor. And I think I told you on your show that it was clean LSD and Art Bell as a teenager that kind of helped me get out and into the world a little bit.
Yeah. Thanks for the deprogramming tools; those came in handy.
I do kind of want to talk to you a little bit about how you feel about education, what you witnessed in not just the American educational standard system, but you also taught on a reservation and wrote a book about that. Right off the bat, what is the most fundamental difference between res schools and U.S. public schools?
Oh man, I guess the most fundamental difference is trauma. The trauma levels of my students at the school from reservation it's like 100% of them were severely traumatized. And in a regular public school setting, even in some more impoverished districts, it's going to be more like, I don't know. I don't want to really put a number on it, I guess, but I would guess more like 10% or something, right? So that is a significant issue and difference. But the educational paradigm and the style of education is exactly the same.
Just indoctrination and learn how to push the buttons, and we're going to teach history wrong to get you in a cycle of dependence either on a corporation or a government, dependent on which party is in control of it.
That's 100%. Yep. Wow. The one good thing that the reservation has going for it oftentimes is that there is a really deep mistrust of education, because so many natives still have that, if not living members of their family who went to the, oh God, what are they called? The schools that they force everyone into.
Oh,
Anyway, those
Jesus.
schools they forced all the natives into, and they couldn't speak their language, and they
Oh, right, the re-education center.
basically, yeah, there's a word for them for some reason, but like they have an official name. But yeah, they were forced there. They couldn't wear their clothes. They couldn't wear their hair the ways they were used to. They couldn't have any of their kind of culture with them. They couldn't speak their language, and most of the children were raped. There's a really fucked up story about Queen Elizabeth coming to visit a native school or a school for those types of situations up in Canada, and she took like a group of the kids off into the woods and came back without them.
Fuck.
And yeah, she's a fucking evil bitch. But there's the last guy who was still living, who was about to testify in a case that was being brought against her for that, mysteriously died, and so that case is dead. But
Indian education.
Oh, I don't know.
So suiciding your opponents is not just unique to the Clintons.
well, I think truly like white bread, deep English tradition. But I'm sure it goes back before that too.
Yeah, it just seems like the American aristocracy that we've created for billionaires and entertainers and some politicians has just picked that up and ran with it like a motherfucker. It's not limited to the Clintons, although I did find out on the way over here that Anthony Weiner just got granted early release from prison.
What?
Yeah,
No.
they're letting Weiner out early.
But
I have a feeling that if he decides to talk, he's going to get the 6 shots to the back of the head suicide treatment.
I was gonna say he could probably implicate a lot of people, but
He could take
yeah.
so many people down. His wife alone is one of the grander targets.
His wife is Kuma, whatever, right?
Yeah,
Monogamy.
Oh, that's her. Okay.
Yeah.
Because there's another sleazy politician with a name similar to Wiener, I feel like, that was also a sexual miscreant that I can't remember. Anyway, it was like at the same time.
So many wieners.
So little time.
I saw a thing not too long ago that the American taxpayer has chipped in for something like $250 million worth of sexual harassment lawsuits committed by Congressional members of Congress.
So fucked up.
And it's not that taxes fund spending, because they don't, but it would be nice to not have to support somebody's groping habit.
Yeah. Like on top of everything else we support, this class of people that are just like parasites.
They really are parasites because they depend on us to subsidize their existence. Whether or not their
Live a normal life.
whether or not their business is private, they're still getting funded by the government. Chuck fucking Grassley, senator from Iowa, the guy who was kind of at the forefront of the recent Kavanaugh hearings, we just found out that he applied for government subsidies for the factory farm that he owns.
What an asshole.
What a conflict of fucking interest! It further solidifies the fact that we are not living in the reality that they tell us that we are.
Yeah, well, I try to like trace it back. I mean, because we have this idea, this fundamental idea that politicians are supposed to be servants of the people. Somewhere in, we all know that is supposed to be the ideal, and I want to believe that at some point we were at least much, much closer to that than we are now. It's like in no way are we that now, right? It's very, very clear that politicians are servants to the corporations. So then I'm like, is the place where we went the most wrong with this American experiment? What was it, like 1840 something? We did away with the charters for corporations.
Oh,
thing.
right.
Supreme Court case, and we were like, no, you don't have to have charters anymore. And I feel like that was the moment where we decided we were going to become a corporate oligarchy or whatever.
That was, yeah, that was around the same time that corporations were granted personhood.
Yes.
In at least in concept, if not by rule of law, the way that Citizens United put it forth. No, Chomsky, I don't know how you feel about Chomsky at all, but he has a documentary called The Corporation, and it's it just kind of goes through the chronology of how these particular entities were given human rights and what they have done with those rights. And it's fucking horrific.
I haven't seen that exact movie, but Noam Chomsky is one of the first people that woke me up. Had a very fantastic educator named Scott. Shout out to Scott, who will never probably listen to this show. Maybe he will. But he had us watch Noam Chomsky's, was it Affluenza?
Yes.
And then, or is that even Chomsky? And then,
I think so.
There's another one about materialism, which I can't remember at the time. And it really got me a little bit radicalized, more radicalized than I was, and set me down this path in a way, kind of, more so. Well, there was other things too. Anyway, so I have a special place in my heart for Noam Chomsky. I really love him, and the dude speaks a lot of truth, and he's very intelligent. And I just wonder if, there's aspects, because people will say oh, he's a shill, or he's bought off, and he's changed his tune, and we can say this about everyone, I feel like, eventually, but because people change over time, but maybe he is, and I just have to think that who wouldn't be once they're that influential? If they can suicide someone with 6 shots to the back of the head,
Right.
How many people are really going to stand up and say, no, I'm going to still speak the truth, and you can kill me and my family if that's what you're going to do? I don't know.
So I think within the context of,
if not everything he says is 100%.
Sure.
yeah, or there's that part where a lot of it is really good, and it rings true, and it resonates, and we can just take that part and leave the other part that doesn't work for us outside. I've heard nothing but a message of peace from the man, and then rattles of the other things, which happens when your light burns really bright. They're going to come at you in a lot of ways.
True. And so that is a really good point, and I feel like that kind of gets to one of the things that is wrong with our culture at the moment, is that we think that you have to, I'll quote someone, and people will be like, do you realize that the person you're quoting, fucking, assaulted a woman once? And I'm like, dude, I am quoting him because I like the quote. I'm not ascribing to every single thing the dude did in his entire life. I don't know every private moment of any person, and you don't have to take everything, right? I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. I did something.
You have contributed.
I think we're at the point, at least in terms of our discourse, nationally, in what amounts to the public sphere of public square of social media, that if you aren't 100% pure, or haven't always done this or always thought this, you're immediately dismissed. And you see a lot of it with, you see a lot of it on the actual left, where people can 100% agree on, we want to stop these wars of imperialism. We would like to have a healthcare system that doesn't rely on GoFundMe or bankruptcy. The basic, kind of, we think that workers should own the means of production, that sort of thing. But yeah, you're absolutely right. They do you like they did Ben Affleck when he tried to say something about the Me Too movement. They're like, you grabbed the titty in '99.
Don't pound me too!
Right? And that's supposed to somehow disqualify you it seems like just one more weapon in their arsenal to prevent good knowledge from reaching the ears that it needs. And people just flock to that because we're so reactionary that you're only listening to argue back instead of taking in any of the information.
That's a really good point too. And don't you think like that's part of our lack of responsibility that we have, where we're like, technically most of us are pretty lazy. So if someone's like, hey, have you ever read Chomsky? And you're like, shit, now I have to admit I have never read any Chomsky, and now I probably have to read some Chomsky. And then someone comes along, they're like, well, Chomsky did this one time, and you're like, never mind, I don't have to read him. See, he's a bad guy. Like there's something like lazy in that we like want. Part of us wants that. Or like, give me an excuse to not do the work.
Oh, absolutely. We have a central theme on this show is that one of the attempts that we're making here by doing it is to force people out of their lazy opinion.
Yeah.
But you get your lazy opinion sold to you, and then you want to treat it like it's an object that you own, and you want to take care of it, and you want to make sure that nothing bad happens to your lazy opinion, like finally having a fucking original thought of your own. And therein lies, I think, a lot of the problem with our discourse is that people are so heavily invested in their lazy opinions that admitting that they bought a faulty product is tantamount to the worst possible thing they could ever say out loud.
See, and I just, maybe I'm a weirdo, but like I kind of get, I don't know how to say it, but like I really like to be like disabused of my beliefs if they're false. Like somebody told me that ear candles were a sham, and I was like, fuck you, I have used ear candles for years, and I was like, god damn it, but now I have to go research it and figure it out, because if they are, like, I don't want to waste my money on them anymore. And I went and looked and asked my acupuncture and like talked to some people, and yeah, they're a fucking sham. If anybody out there is using ear candles, go do your research. They are not doing shit for you at all. Okay, well, maybe there's always the, oh my god, what's the word for when your brain does it for you because you think it will? Placebo. There's always the placebo. Yeah. So like, yeah, it's doing something, and it's warm, and maybe it's like soothing you, whatever, sure. But like, you could just put a fucking heating pad on your head too.
Yeah, I've never had much success with ear candles, but I don't even know if I've done them right.
It doesn't matter, because nothing's going to happen. Like, you can burn one and just hold it in your hand, and it'll have the exact same like shit inside of it as if you put it in your ear. So, I don't know.
Did you do that? Did you do the experiment?
I'm not like
you must have.
To destroy.
I've been curious. Sorry.
Oh.
Oh yeah, I was wondering if you did that experiment, because what is that in there? So it does the same thing if you just burn it in there. Oh,
yeah, so
drat!
It's just its own, right. I don't get how it does it, but it's its own wax or product of some kind, I guess.
I used them when I was younger.
Do you have the opportunity while you're teaching to put a little bit of your own work or your own thoughts into the lesson? Like, are you actually trying to guide these kids, or is it structured in a way that your own personal input is just written out of the equation?
That's a really good question. So every situation is different. It depends on your principal and your coworkers and your school district. And some school districts are like, this is the curriculum you're using. You're doing this in 9th grade. You're going to do it in this order. Some are down to the point where they're like, you are doing this lesson on this day. And they literally have every day a lesson mapped out for you. And you have no choice. You have to do that lesson on that day. And some are the opposite extreme where they're like, we have nothing for you. Figure it out. And so I've had both situations where everything's very prescribed and everything is very free. And I definitely prefer the everything's very free part. But even with all of my kind of radical or very strong opinions, I kind of hold it as like a sacred duty to not indoctrinate my students. And I try really hard to not lead them towards any certain conclusion, no matter what subject we're talking about. And so what I really try to do is I try to force them to think and use logic, and then I try to force them to use evidence. And those are basically my two main goals. Like, I'm technically teaching civics, and I'm technically teaching English 3, and I'm technically teaching graphic novels, but what I'm really trying to do is to force them to be able to think, and they hate it, and they hate me. I literally have to like cry in my class, and they're like, "Why aren't you like other teachers?"
I feel like I should thank you for your service.
Some of them come back later, and they're like, "Oh my God, you're the only teacher that actually like taught me stuff." So some of that, I kind of get some kudos sometimes, but like in the moment, kids, nobody wants to think. It's the same as when you meet people and you're trying to talk to them about any random thing. Like they don't want to think, and you're a Debbie Downer for bringing something up, and they don't want to have to use logic. They just want to fall back on their lazy beliefs, and I don't know. It's the same exact thing. It's just a little microcosm.
All right.
And there's false like power dynamic going on as well. You're never gonna have as easy of a time helping someone learn something when you are automatically perceived as like the bad guy in charge instead of like just a person who's trying to help you learn or accomplish something.
Right. You're an authority figure instead of a mentor or a tutor.
And you can't get past that no matter who you are as a person, because that's the dynamic that's been set up for them since they were 5 years old. So that's just what they see, whether or not it's what you're doing.
Fair enough. We are getting the signal from Barry, the producer. We got to wrap up here. There's another band coming in. But Lindsey, it has been awesome having you on here. Before we cut out real quick, yes or no answer, is the internet Pandora's box?
Oh shit. Yes. Blew my mind at the end of the show.
It is so nice to meet you today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much for having me. Very nice
I'm
to
going to
meet
be
you.
checking out Rogue Ways for sure, more in depth. Yeah.
Yes, and you can go to CoreySharmyn.com if you'd like to read things that I write or buy any of my books. They're on there. You can also find them on Amazon if you search for Corey Sharmyn. It's really hard to spell, so good luck.
Good luck to us all.
If you're paying attention at home, that's Quorri. Right? Did I spell that right?
Yes.
I just spelled it out loud. I hope I got that right. Okay, well, Lindsey, the reason I asked you if the internet's Pandora's box is because we'd like to have you back on sometime soon, and that is what I would prefer to have the discussion about. So if you can over the next few weeks or so mull that one over, maybe even test it out on roadways, and then come back and tell us what you learned, that would be awesome.
Yes, totally. That would be really cool.
And
Thank you for having me, and I will come back anytime. It's been really fun.
Okay, we go ahead and
Yeah, we want to give you a buffer zone, man. We're not trying to, so thank you.
yeah, and I actually have to go to my second job here soon.
Yeah, and I got to go back to work.
Yeah.
This was such a nice break.
Yay, I'm glad.
Yeah, this has been awesome.
Brain food.
We would love to have you back, and for everybody listening at home, we are a new show. So if you are enjoying the content, if you're digging what we're putting down, please go leave 5-star reviews wherever you're listening this to. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, all that jazz. Until next time, thank you for listening, and don't believe the bullshit that the elites are feeding you day in and day out.
Put down the chodos.
Fuck the government.
All right, Lindsey, thanks so much. We will see you soon.